or welcome to Between Two Pastries. This is Nicole.
Hey everyone, it's Annie.
Yes,
Back
we
again.
are back again. We are doing carbohydrate part 2 on this one because
Part two.
we were just ready to take that to a whole nother level. So, so we're going to bring that to you right now.
Ooh, that really got fired up.
Yeah, seriously. So I think where we wanted to kind of take it then was the whole concept of carbohydrate addiction, which isn't a real thing, as well as sugar addiction too. So I think
right, but the media has played it as a real thing to curb your sugar addiction, and people are eliminating carbohydrates because of quote unquote a sugar addiction.
Right.
Let me tell you, I work in psychiatric care, and we do not have ever one person diagnosed or coming in because of a sugar addiction.
Right.
So let's talk about it.
The thing is you can make anything addictive if you give it power. That
Boom.
is what is super important. And that's the piece that I'd wanted to bring up, because what I find is people who eliminate stuff all the time are the same ones that tell me they have an addiction to something. So it's like the issue is more or less that you're not getting enough of whatever. And then that can also fuel this like drive for it. So when people tell me like, oh, I crave carbohydrate. Well, are you eating it? Well, no. Well, that's why you're craving it.
That's
number
why.
one. But literally your
brain.
body is also trying to tell you, I freaking need some carbs, So like, your brain is always programmed to seek what it needs. And so it's that's kind of the idea. So I just wanted to make sure to kind of bring that up.
Well, I have two things. Number one, first, a disclaimer. If you are allergic to alcohol, that's a whole different thing.
Completely
or narcotics,
thing.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, we're not talking about that. So we're talking about basically carbohydrate addiction or any food addiction. I have a soda addiction. I have a what? It's generally a blank. Food addiction is a sugar or carbohydrate source. Okay. Second, I want to give a story, because I was with acquaintances not too long ago, having some discussions and everything. And I'm hanging out, and we all, some of us eat carbs, some of us don't. And I'm watching this one person really, really, really try not to, while drinking alcohol and having, an all protein, all fat meal.
Gotcha.
Followed up by watching this person really try their hardest to not eat a piece of bakery.
Right.
And literally I'm watching, I'm observing this, because it takes me back to working with binge eaters.
Yeah.
And the eyeballs going back and forth, trying to focus on the person talking to the bakery, talking to the bakery, comment back to the bakery.
Right.
And it's this constant, and, someone else noticing it and saying, well, just have a fucking cookie, right? Break off a part of a cookie. And then the eyes keep going back. And then all of a sudden 12 bakery items are gone, and carbohydrate is the worst thing in the entire world. So what's happening, and let's break this down. There's a power that's been given to that bakery, number one. There's a power over that person. Right. The bakery, again, is just sitting there, and it's not alive, so it can't truly have power, but it does, right?
Completely harmless. Yeah.
Totally harmless, but it has complete power. Because we're so malnourished in the carbohydrate department from this wackadoodle diet that we're following, of, high protein, high fat, but then I throw alcohol in there as well. And then now I'm kind of got this binge restrict pattern going with carbohydrate. The confusion in the body is unreal.
Oh yeah.
The brain is saying, I need carbs and I need them now. So there's this weird permission that ultimately is given, right? We succumb to that. And then you eat something, the piece of the bakery, and then all of a sudden it's just like, I need more sugar. And what's happening is your body is like, thank you. And it's giving you those signals to eat more of that because you've suppressed it for so long.
Yeah.
Even if that means from the last meal sometimes.
Correct.
Or
Again,
it could be a week or whatever.
It is your brain's main desire for fuel, period. period, for all of the reasons that we said. Now, to that point too, you know, when we talk about like addiction, the only thing about that is that when you have chosen to not have it for so long, this quote unquote feeling of addiction, because I think people are just like, yeah, but why do I like, I have to have it and I have to have it and blah, blah, blah. Well, again, it's because it's literally firing brain chemicals that haven't been fired for so long, you know. So it's firing, like, you know, the dopamine, the serotonin, it's firing all the feel good stuff because you're so out of balance with it. When if you were just taking in carbohydrate very easily in a balanced way on a very regular basis, you would have those naturally occurring hormones constantly in balance already. There wouldn't be these extreme needs. There just wouldn't.
Right.
And that is the other point I just wanted to make, because people will argue about, no, I really like, once it's, I get this a lot. Once I start, I can't stop. Well, now let's look at that a little bit. Yeah. It's like, is it because you really choose not to do certain things? Is it because maybe you've made it up in your mind that you can't do those things? And it's always, we desire the thing we tell ourselves we can't have the most. So does it become more of that kind of a drive? There's so many different ways of kind of trying to understand where this ultimately comes from.
Well, and let me give you another example on just exactly what you were saying. So I had it was actually a patient who, and again, this is how majority of diet culture operates. You know, Halloween candy is at Halloween. So what do people do? They stock up and they eat all the Halloween candy in the world. But then the other times of the year, they're not eating candy.
Sure.
And it's this big struggle and this big battle, right?
Naturally.
So I'm working with this person and I said, you're going to eat a piece of Halloween candy every single day in the months of, you know, September and October leading up to Halloween. And let's see what happens Halloween day. In addition to the one piece of candy she had every day, which was hard because she had the one piece of candy, I also made her put a piece of candy in her pocket.
Okay.
But she couldn't eat that piece of candy.
Okay.
That piece of candy had to stay in the pocket. And it was ultimately to neutralize the candy that, hey, I have this piece of candy in my pocket and I really, really, really want it, but I'm not going to eat it. Because I know I get a piece of candy every day and it's available to me.
Yes.
Eventually what happened is she was eating a piece of candy every day and I said, hey, how's that piece of candy in her pocket? And she's like, oh shit, I forgot it was there.
Yeah.
Because started the power of candy, chocolate in particular for her.
Yes.
It neutralized and we brought it down. So that, and again, we had done exposure work to get her to the point of a piece of candy in the pocket. Like we had started, you know, with other exposures to get there. Like, we had worked on this to this point. Like there's a process with exposure work. And by the time Halloween came, she's like, yeah, I had my piece of candy and there were, you know, 50 bags of Halloween candy out and she didn't care.
Yep.
If you eat quote unquote forbidden foods or sugar or whatever every single day in moderation, whatever that looks like, it doesn't need to be a bowl of ice cream or a whole brownie or this. It can be a bite of something every single day.
Totally.
You're not going to go nuts on whatever.
No. You're going to start to not even care. And you're going to start to realize you're not thinking about food all the time at all. Right. Because you finally have developed that trust enough, because there's also the trust component, that you can live in the same room with all of these other things. And these other things don't determine what you eat. You determine what you eat and how you determine it and when you eat and yada, yada. So,
yeah. And so let's talk really quick, because I know a lot of people who might listen may say, well, but there's a chemical response in the brain with sugar, and it's then quote unquote stated to be similar to, is it cocaine or heroin? Or whatever.
Definitely. Yeah. So sugar is called kitty cocaine for a reason. You know, when you think about like a little body and when they take in a bunch of sugar, it's like the volume per volume of a little body, you know, it overwhelms the system, and then it makes you, you know, it lights up a whole bunch of areas in the brain real quick, but then those areas crash right away. So there is truth to that. But if you're taking in a piece of candy, that a piece of candy is not going to make you do that. a gallon of ice cream might.
So you have to have mass quantities, essentially.
Yes,
Right.
yes,
Right.
yes. Or I mean,
So,
but a
so
serving of something isn't. That's not how it operates. The issue is
right.
when we just consume these large quantities at one time.
Or it's the only thing we consume.
Yeah, that too, for sure.
Right.
For sure.
The other thing too that I'm, kind of along the same topic line is parents with kids who comment on how, whoa, my kid had a candy bar and now they're out of control. And, sugar does not make your kids act differently. There's been a lot of research out.
If sugar
that
isn't the main component to the intake, that's the issue.
Correct. Right.
As long as balance is there and they're getting in those certain nutrients, they can handle the sugar then because it's different. But when kids are only eating lots of different sources of sugar is hidden in all these other things, that's when we are getting problems.
Right. And are you seeing problems with that? Again, I'm going down a rabbit hole here, but let's layer that. Are you then seeing kids with ADHD issues?
Huge.
Right. So then you layer that. So now taking it a step further, in our Western culture in the United States, which is primarily of diet culture, you have a lot of diagnoses that I see every day of ADHD. Mm-hmm. Whereas in Europe, you hardly see ADHD Correct. Being diagnosed. But again, I want to reinforce that sugar is not addictive in the way that the media is portraying it.
That's correct.
It does not cause bad things to happen to you when eaten in a normal manner.
And that's the point. And when you and I have talked about this before, that sugar cannot cause those things. Your behavior causes those things.
Correct.
Your behavior and relationship with those things cause those things. And even that's not true. You can't just cause a disease to happen, but over time it can happen if,
Correct.
The exposure is
I probably see more cases of diabetes type 2 being diagnosed to the person who is of normal weight, yo-yo dieted, was, low carb, no carb, low carb, no carb, some carb, binging, type on carb, sometimes carb, being diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, than the overweight person who has soda and candy a little bit every day, but they're overweight or obese and they're fine.
Yep. Perfectly fine.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You are better off in that body. But that's really hard because, as our culture says, that's not okay. So it's frustrating for me, and I know for you too, is people who are trying to advocate for, body positivity and, going back to the science of these things. But the science is real. You need carbohydrate for energy, number one. Number two, carbohydrate is not addictive in the manner in which we see it in the media.
Correct.
And it's going to have worse consequences on your body if you don't have it.
Well, so the only other piece that I kind of wanted to make is when people talk about like holidays. So you mentioned like a Halloween, there's Easter, I can't stand this whole holiday crap, but I really struggle. I can't stand focusing on food all the time like this. It drives me nuts. But the thing that I don't like is when like Thanksgiving comes around and people already are making jokes about how much they're going to eat on Thanksgiving, right? And it's
or
like
how much they need to exercise.
Right. And it's all
I got to do a 4-hour.
Because it's like all carbohydrate based or whatever. Well, again, like why are we not treating these meals as just regular meals? Yes, there's a few different things in there than we're not making. And then I always challenge my clients, why are you not making stuffing then? Like at least once a week for yourself if you love it that much.
Right.
Why are you not making sweet potato casserole at least once a month or whatever it is? This is where, again, it's another concept of food experience.
Whatever it is.
Have it whenever you gosh darn want. You don't need to wait for once a year to have these things because that's when it gets out of control and we give it so much power.
Do you know when people...
Drives me nuts.
Yep. Do you know how many times a week we eat pizza and how many people, when they hear that, look at me with their eyes bulged out of their head because for many of them, it's a once a month maybe thing.
I don't want to hear anybody tell me that pizza is a treat because that ticks me off. I can't stand the word treat anyway, but I mean, pizza, like seriously, it is a food. And not only that, it's a complete balanced food. I'm definitely not a fan of, I'm just going to throw it out there. I'm not a fan of like pizza chains. Like this, you're not getting the best quality things, but you're also not getting
no.
And again, it's still about balance. Have your couple pieces of pizza, have a salad, please call it a day, be done, whatever. Right. It's just a normal meal. It's a meal.
But if you only have it once a month, now you eat the whole pizza. And it goes to that point of Thanksgiving.
Exactly.
Where we make a Thanksgiving-like meal multiple times during the year.
That's awesome.
Because it tastes
good.
Those are foods.
Yeah.
And like we have pie or desserts or whatever. Like, so Thanksgiving rolls around and, our 13-year-old who's exposed to Thanksgiving once a year and then we cook it, she doesn't experience that.
Right.
She doesn't go through that, I'm engorged and now I need to,
because she can have it whenever she wants.
Right. It's amazing how when these kids and adults are exposed to regular amounts of carbohydrate on a normal basis, all of a sudden, wow, like nutritionally, physiologically, weight management wise, like it's where they need to be.
Yep.
Up top in their head.
Completely.
Makes a huge difference. Completely. And I can't tell you the number of friends she has who have, parents who are, can't have sugar or whatever nutrient. Typically it's sugar. And those kids are hiding food or binging and it's like.
Or later as adults saying, I didn't have this as a kid, so I want it all the time. And now again, they have this really not friendly relationship with it. Yeah, I know.
Right. It's a really bad cycle. Don't get in that. Have these foods around. And if you need help with the exposure work, that's like my favorite thing in the world to do is to give people exposure. And what I mean by exposure work, because we should probably describe what that is. For example, if you have a fear of snakes, we want you to get to the point of maybe perhaps holding a snake because your kid is going to have one as a pet, let's say. So we're going to start by looking at pictures of a snake. And then once you become exposed to that and your anxiety level with that goes down, now we're going to go to the zoo and we're going to look at a snake behind a window.
Right.
And then, and so forth. Yes. Right. So you do that same thing with food.
Right. Exactly.
It's amazing how well it works when there's fears around food. But it's really too bad because food is essential for life.
It literally is. And it's just that we have abundance of it and we have lots of choices and lots of variety. And that's also part of the human hang up too, is having too many choices for sure. But we gotta roll out.
Oh, we're going to do our rollout song. Okay. Because we're working on intros and outros and making this professional per our investor, Brian Frayne. And so until we find the appropriate outro, we're going to sing you our outro. Okay. How does it go?
I know.
Okay. Ready?
Okay. Between two pastries.
Between pastries.
Look as we walk out the door. Bye-bye.
Look at our buns. Check out our buns.
Bye, y'all.
All right, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.